Okay, we are good to go there. Does anyone have any questions right off the bat? We're going to get into how to use your monitor and adjust the settings in that in 1 minute. But does
Cool.
anyone have questions about virtual classroom or need any help settling in?
So 2 questions real quick.
Sure.
For this class, are we going to need the secondary monitor?
It is not a requirement, but a recommendation.
Okay, I can do that in the side for now. And then I don't remember what my second question was. I'm sorry. That
No
was
problem.
the most important question. Thank you.
Yeah, in general, you won't ever need your second monitor. It's not like we're going to be doing an exercise where, like you absolutely have to have the second monitor plugged in. But in general, you'll get into the swing of using the external monitor so much that it will be hard to attend class without it. So definitely not a requirement. And if you're on the road or you're traveling a week and still tuning in for class or anything like that, you definitely don't need the second monitor. But once you get used to it, it is very hard to attend class without it. Any other questions I can answer right off the bat?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
So I heard you telling us how to change that setting.
Yes.
I was looking for it.
Yep.
So I didn't hear all of it.
No problem. So up at the top, if you are in Zoom, no, not VS Code, close out. If you are in Zoom, up at the top, you click on Zoom and drop down to Preferences.
Mm-hmm.
From there, you go over to Share Screen. And then when you are in Share Screen, Maintain Current Size is what you should have checked off to prevent it from going into full screen.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Okay. I'm normally pretty good about muting before I sneeze. I think I made it on that one to not blast out your eardrums. Okay. So we are going to go ahead and dive into class for the week. Ariel is going to be our TA. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to her on either Slack or in the Zoom chat. Or you can shoot me a message and I will have my Zoom chat open as well. We are going to kick off class as we usually do with stand up. And I'm going to pull up the outline so that you guys can reference that as well. Of course, this is in Canvas. It's almost always a good idea to have Slack opened up at the beginning of class and to pop open the daily outline. Because a lot of the information that we'll be going off of is in this document. With that said, who would like to kick us off? What did we learn either yesterday or last week?
Imposter Syndrome.
What's that?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Imposter Syndrome.
Imposter Syndrome. Yep. That whole notion of maybe this isn't for me, right? And the most dangerous part of imposter syndrome is thinking that you're the only one who's feeling that way. So making sure to share that when you experience that syndrome, and leaning on each other to make sure, hey, maybe it's not just me that's not getting this idea. Maybe I need to ask questions about this or see if there's someone else who's feeling like they don't belong, because maybe we can work together to combat that feeling and get caught up. What else did we learn yesterday or in general last week?
We learned about
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. We learned about the software development lifecycle.
Yep.
And the different steps of it.
Yep.
First step was planning. Second step was requirement analysis. Third was design, development, testing, integration, and maintenance.
Yep. That is a cycle that is used all over the software industry. Some companies will be very explicit with that and saying, hey, we're completing phase 3, we're moving into phase 4. Other companies may end up following those phases, but don't explicitly have them written out. And some companies may kind of merge a couple of those phases together. But important early on, as we'll be focusing obviously mainly on number 4, which is that development piece of it. But when you hit the workforce, it's important to identify that there is a lot more that goes on other than just the development step.
We went over Kanban and Trello.
Kanban and Trello, project management, kind of taking that software development lifecycle and breaking it down into pieces, using our requirements definitions and documents in order to manage a project. Obviously, project management is very important when you're working with a team to make sure that you're collaborating properly, but at the same time, even for projects that you're working on yourself, right? Engineering is all about taking a complicated task and breaking it down. But when you have that broken down into all those little pieces, it's tough to keep track of all of them. So a tool like Trello or any other software that supports a Kanban board, getting down to that to-do, doing, done level, very important. Karen, go ahead.
There are a few guest speakers from cohort 3, and Doug in particular was mentioning that it's important to lean on people and of course to do the work and to keep up with the work as well. And I also remember what was you making the suggestion, or Doug making the suggestion that, you don't have to be really behind in order to meet or make an appointment with any one of the TAs. Even if you're, even if you're caught up and you want to celebrate your successes, you can schedule a meeting anyway. So
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the great uses of those one-on-one meetings is either confirming what you think you know, or asking your instructor or TA to push you a little bit further, right? So we're going to touch on in a couple minutes optional homework assignments. But those instructors and TAs and mentors, when you show them what you've got going on, there's always another step, right? Software is never complete. And that's kind of part of recognizing that software development life cycle, is that C stands for cycle. It goes on and on forever. There's always something more that you can do on your project. If you would like to use your one-on-ones for saying like, hey, I think I'm getting all of this, can I just bounce these ideas off you, or what would you work on next? We can definitely use the TAs and the one-on-ones and the mentors for that as well. Great point. Schneider, go ahead.
We got introduced to Figma.
Figma, yes. What's Figma used for?
Mockups, wireframes, prototypes, but I mean, I only used it for the wireframe at the moment. So, yeah.
Yeah, so we will have a couple notes on the homework assignment for this weekend. I'll touch on that in a minute or two at the end, not at the end of stand up, at the end of the car wireframe exercise. Brandon, go ahead.
I'm sorry, did anyone say anything about the SDLC lifecycle?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
We did touch on that. Yep.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. Any other final notes from last week, or particularly on Thursday, that we want to review?
Are we going to go over the terms?
The charts for the car project?
No, the terms that we've learned.
Oh,
Is that
yes.
still a thing? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That is on my list. Let me just scoot this around. I'm going to pull up that day's outline. Okay, terms from week 1, day 4. Thank you, Schneider, for the reminder. We did not have a chance at the end of class on Thursday to do our terms exercise. So are there any terms that we learned yet on Thursday that we should capture in our term list?
So I kind of wanted a little bit of a review of what you meant by project involvement and multiple stakeholders.
Sure.
Because I know that was a question, one of the questions in the quiz, and I guesstimated honestly, and I Googled it. Yep. and I was like, I don't know if this is right, so let me just ask just to make sure that I'm right.
Sure, yeah. So multiple stakeholders are identifying that the people involved in a technical project may not be developers. They may include designers, project owners, project managers,
okay,
business analysts, rarely end users,
okay.
DevOps, security, etc. So that's kind of identifying that, hey, as a developer, yeah, you're the one working on it, right? But when you talk about a project stakeholder, that's talking about everyone who is involved in that project. And so because of that, it's important to identify titles and know what everyone's role is, right? So not every stakeholder will be as active. There may be a stakeholder that only shows up once every other week to sprint planning just to see how it's going, right?
Right.
Or it may not be, someone may be a stakeholder but not involved in that phase of the SDLC, so they're not showing up to meetings or something like that. But whenever we talk about a project stakeholder, we're talking about who's involved in this project, and can we identify that pretty easily and early on, so that when we do run into a problem, we know who to contact and who to talk to about.
Gotcha. Okay. So just knowing the different roles in the project that are not developers and knowing what their responsibilities are on top of that.
Correct. Yeah. So, I mean, a developer could definitely be a stakeholder in the project, but just knowing that there are a lot of people involved in technical projects is kind of the main point that quiz question wanted to hit on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And just a note for people, if you did not get that quiz question, do not panic. There is a list of every week between, I don't know, 8 and 25 questions that I load up into Canvas. So everyone may get a slightly different quiz, and that's okay. That's intentional. Schneider, go ahead.
All right, this also has to do with the quiz.
Yeah.
Question 4, why do we use a grid column system during the design phase? I didn't know if you meant like the Kanban organization technique, or like literal
Great
grid
question.
system when we're doing the wireframe. I kind of just answered whatever.
So I did mean it in the context of the wireframe. However, Ariel helped grade those quizzes for me and shared a couple answers, and I was like, what the, oh, I didn't cover the grid and column system. So that was a question that was in there that shouldn't have been. We will be touching on that starting tomorrow. So today we're going to get diving into code. We're going to start writing our first HTML, at least in the class. We're going to start playing around with HTML elements and going over all of that kind of stuff. Tomorrow, we will be doing a deeper dive into the grid system by taking a mock-up and actually devolving it or destructuring it into a grid, so that we've got a plan of attack for when we're developing out that code. So that is a question that no matter what answer you put on it, you got full credit if you attempted to answer it, but that answer will become more evident tomorrow when we start diving into Bootstrap and the grid system and all of that fun stuff.
That question had me stressing.
That is totally my bad. I'm sorry. I created the quizzes before I had done all the outlines, and I realized that grid is not something that we covered. So that's something that we'll be diving into tomorrow as well.
And Max, if anybody noticed they have it marked wrong, let me know and I'll fix it, because I did some of them not knowing you guys didn't know that before when I was grading. So there might be a couple of you that missed it. Let me know and I'll adjust it.
Any other questions or terms from Thursday that we want to try and capture? Jordan, go ahead.
Did you say me?
Yeah.
Okay. So on the homework, I just have a question about one of the last things that was on there. It said like link to GitHub and coder running. What is coder running? Like, you mean like the sandbox itself, or like?
Yeah. So we'll dive into that during the DevOps week of how to actually get your code running. But basically all that I was saying is something like this needs to be part of your wireframe. So
Okay.
it doesn't necessarily have to actually work, and you know, we're not at that prototype level where you can click on the link and have it pop open, but some kind of placeholder saying that, hey, in theory, if I did this project, you would be able to click on it and see it at GitHub, and then click on another link and see like the demo of it actually running.
Okay, so per project in the portfolio, we were supposed to have like 2 little placeholders like that.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, good. Just making sure. Thank you.
And remember, the point of the wireframe is to get it to the point you can kind of think of this from the end user perspective in, or from the developer perspective out. So from the outside perspective, the end user perspective in, you're thinking about, is this wireframe something that if I went on this website, right, that the wireframe would feel like a website? Would I be able to go on this wireframe, view everything on it and say, okay, I understand how all of this is laid out. I've got a general idea of what content should be in there. I get the idea of what a project would look like inside this portfolio. That's kind of one perspective to take on it. The other perspective you can take on a wireframe is, if I hired a developer to build a website for me and I handed them this wireframe, would they be able to build what I want my website to look like? And you don't necessarily need to go to that mock-up level where you're doing colors and button styling and all of that kind of stuff. But what you want to think about, and you can do that in reverse. As a developer, if a client handed me this website and said, go build this website for me, would I have most of the information I needed in order to lay out that website properly? And so that's what you want to shoot for. Ariel is going to do a wireframe of my portfolio website to give you guys a better idea of what a final wireframe is supposed to look like. And then if you guys want, you can go back through and resubmit your homework and we'll grade that. There's no deadline for resubmitting homework, and it's no big deal if you got a 1.5. A 1.5 is like, you're almost there, right? Like you were on the right track, you did the assignment, but you didn't necessarily finish up to what we were hoping for. So we'll have that wireframe as kind of an example. If you want to try and redo your homework, we'll have that on Tuesday or Wednesday. So if you want to go back and retry that or improve it, you're more than welcome to. But I don't want you guys to panic. If you got a 1.5 on your homework, that's like, you tried doing it, we saw that you did it, you're good enough, you can move on to the next step. So if you got a 1.5, don't panic. And if you do want to try and redo it, just wait a day or two until we have that that example that Ariel's going to produce. And then from there, you can use that as practice to kind of get yours looking more like ours. And I will say that if you got a 1 or a 1.5 on the homework assignment, and you're like, I know what I want it to look like, but Figma is getting in my way, I need more practice with Figma, don't be afraid to pull out that whiteboard or that pen and paper or whatever it is and just design it on paper, because sometimes the tool is what gets in your way. So don't be afraid to get out onto another medium and practice using a different kind of tool, even if that's just paper and pencil.
I can still use Draw.io.
Draw.io, diagrams.net, whatever software you would like. It's much more important to understand the concept of wireframing and that, hey, I need to get my layout done and my general content idea thought through. So whatever tool you use to get that done is totally fine. And I take notes, by the way, of adjustments because every cohort, obviously a lot of the projects are the same, but every time we teach this curriculum, we get a better idea of what projects, what order to do them, how to teach them, all of that stuff. And so one of the notes I have in there is for the next cohort, focus more on the concept of the layout, more and less on Figma itself. So Figma is a great tool. I have no regrets teaching that to you guys or getting you access to it. But it's something that you can kind of just think about of, all right, do I want to go into more of the design things side of things? Did I really like Figma? Did I like playing around with the different layers and all of that kind of stuff? Or maybe Figma was a means to the end and I got the homework assignment done and now I'm ready to move on to the coding, which is what we're going to start doing today. Any other questions before we dive in to everything else that we're covering tonight?
Hi, Max. I have a quick question about the Figma, right?
Yeah,
So, how to add like a link to something? I was trying to find, I was clicking everything. I couldn't find like a link or something so that I can link my PDF, or like I was trying to upload my resume. It was loading all 3 pages instead of just loading my, whatever. So that's, I want to find out. So.
Yeah, so traditionally, a wireframe or a mockup won't have files included, because what you're trying to get to is, all right, what does a resume look like, right? And so normally on, like if you're on LinkedIn and you want to download someone's resume, you're going to hit the little download button and then it opens in a new tab. So in a wireframe or a mockup, all you would do is put in the button that says the word download, and it would be assumed that it would download that file, right? So Figma, what Figma will try and do is insert the resume for you. But when you think about that end user experience, you don't actually want the resume to show up on the page. You want a download button or a hyperlink to click the download button and have that show up on the page. So for that, you would just put in the word download and turn it in like blue and underlined, and that would meet the requirements of having your resume accessible. I think on my site, when you go to the resume, I kind of show 2 little previews of it, but then when you click on the PDF, that's when it kind of opens in a new tab, right? So for the for your site, you would just have this button in that wireframe or in the mockup, and that button would be enough to show, hey, this is how you would get to the resume or the PDF. Any final questions before we dive in tonight? Okay, so I know you guys have your second monitors. Hopefully you have them set up, whether it's the 15-inch portable one or the 24-inch desktop one. Same idea. If you do not already have that powered on and plugged in, go ahead and do that. If you notice on the desktop monitor, it uses an HDMI port. That's what that little adapter is for. You can plug it into either port on your Mac. It doesn't really matter. But one thing that you may find is that we give you that 24-inch monitor not so that you can see everything bigger, but that you can have 2 independent monitors that you can move things between. So this is a really hard thing to kind of screen share because I can't screen share multiple monitors. But in order to get, actually, I think I can, but I'll try that in a second. In order to get your second monitor set up, you're going to go to Apple up in the top left and drop down to System Preferences. When you are in System Preferences, you're going to go to Displays. And this is what mine looks like because I have 3 monitors plugged in. I actually have my laptop monitor sitting down on my desk. And that's why you keep on seeing me looking down. Because you guys are up here where my web camera is. So I actually have 3 monitors on my laptop. I've got a monitor over to the left. I've got a monitor up here, and I've got a monitor down here. Now, what you may notice is if you grab your monitor and try and drag it on either side, see if it goes onto that other monitor. If it does, you can keep dragging your mouse over and get it there. Now, what you may find is that you're dragging it on the right side of your screen, but your monitor is over on the left side of the screen and it's not positioned correctly. If that is the case, what you can do is grab the smaller monitor, that's going to be your laptop monitor, and position it where your laptop actually is. So if your laptop is on the right side and your monitor is on the left side, you can drag it over so it looks like this. And now when you grab that window and drag it over on the left, you'll see it starts to come up on your other monitor. Now, if you are seeing the same exact image on both of your monitors, you can click on Display Settings, then go to your external second monitor. And what you're going to want to do is change that monitor. Instead of it saying mirror, you want to change it to extended. Once you change it to extended and hit done, now in this section of the screen, you'll be able to position that back to where you want it to be, whether that's on the left side or the right side of where your laptop actually is. So we are going to do our first poll right now. This poll is really set up to be oh, give me 1 second. My polls disappeared from last cohort.
I think
this-
it's in Canvas, poll week 2.
No, this is a different poll.
Gotcha.
1 second. We changed links between the two cohorts, and I didn't realize that the polls for the meeting wouldn't sync over. But that is a different poll that will be available at the end of the week regarding name pronunciation and location of where you would like class to be.
Okay.
Max, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where's this poll supposed to pop up?
It is now supposed to pop up in Zoom. So
Oh.
this is a poll that we'll use all the time, where I will do something, you will try and work on it or code or catch up to it. And if you are able to get it working, you can say sure did. If you're just following along and taking notes and you're like, I just move on to the next topic, I'm ready whenever you are, you can vote that no, but keep going. You want to save that I'm lost option for when you're like, I tuned out 10 minutes ago because I've got no idea what's going on. I am like so utterly lost. That's what you want to save the I'm lost for. So what we are going to do for this in-class exercise is, can you grab your window, no matter what window it is, and drag it to the left or right side of your screen and have it show up on the other monitor? If you are able to do that, you can go ahead and hit sure did. If you are like, I got it, the second monitor thing's no big deal, you can vote no, but keep going. And then if you're like, I'm struggling, I can't get displays to work, I have no idea where those settings are, I don't know what's going on, go ahead and vote I'm lost. Or if you have a question, as always, at any point in class, you can always come off mute or shoot me or Ariel a message.
Yeah, so now that I changed my display settings.
Yep.
Can't get it to go to the other monitor.
Okay, so is it on mirroring mode where you're seeing the same thing on both, or are you just struggling to get the window to actually go over?
I do not have it on mirror mode.
Okay, so do you see kind of the bigger monitor? I'm not sharing my screen.
The Scepter monitor.
Yep, and then you see your laptop monitor as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you should be able to drag this laptop monitor to be in position relative to where your bigger Scepter monitor is.
I can get it underneath or next to it.
Yeah, so you just want to set that up. So if your laptop is kind of over on the right side or underneath it, whatever it is, you want that this to look like what your actual desk looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you do have it underneath it, you're going to grab this system preferences window and literally drag up until the window appears on your other monitor.
Okay, there it goes.
Cool.
I apologize. I have a little lag between doing and understanding.
Not a problem. We're going to touch on that in 1 second as well. Unrelated, but so one thing to note is that when you swipe up, you'll now see that the virtual desktops are monitor specific. So when you're in Zoom and you have two virtual desktops on your big monitor and two virtual desktops on your small monitor, they will stay dependent. So when you're swiping back and forth, you will only get the virtual monitors, that virtual desktop that is on that external monitor. However, if you unplug and go to another part of the house or don't have your monitor or whatever plugged in, they will all merge down into multiple desktops that you can see all by swiping left and right.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so I didn't think I was having a difficulty because I'm able to move my mouse back and forth and drag one screen, like the Zoom to the other page by
Yep.
just keeping to the right. But then I went into the display settings. Now, I was often discombobulated to get my setup right. So my monitor is like behind kinda from my laptop.
Okay, so does the laptop screen and the external monitor screen look like they're showing the same thing right now?
Oh, no, I'm using them as an extended display, I think,
Okay,
not mirroring.
so you should be able to just grab whatever one is on top and kind of position it so it looks like your desk.
Grab whatever one is on top, huh? Grab what?
Oh, go ahead and share your screen and let's take a look at what you're looking at.
Okay.
So in the bottom, if you look at where the picture is, it says share screen. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so go to system preferences.
Oh, I have it on the other screen. Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so you're all set because you're able to drag windows between the two of them.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right, cool.
That's all we're checking in on.
Perfect. Thank you.
And Karen, I'm glad that you voiced up that you're lost because I can't see who has voted for what in the poll until I end the poll. So if you do vote I'm lost, just make sure you shoot the TA or me a message or come off a mute and ask your question. I can see that someone voted I'm lost, but I can't see who that actually was. Or you can just raise your hand as well. So Karen, where are you at?
I'm at Happy Monday. How's everyone doing today? That's where I'm at. Okay, so I plugged in my second monitor. I went to system preferences and then to displays. What do I do after displays again?
Yeah, so when you're here, what you want to do is grab this displays window and try and drag it off to the right side of your monitor. If you do and you see it pop up on your other monitor, you're able to now move windows between those two monitors.
What if I can drag it just a little, but not enough?
Just keep going until you're fully over on that other monitor.
Okay, got it.
And now if that's positioned right, you're good to go and you're all caught up. If it's opposite, right, where you're dragging off to the right side of the screen and it's appearing on your monitor that's on the left side of the screen, you can just drag the monitor in that displays window so that it's positioned correctly. So for example, if my laptop were over on the right side of my monitor, I could grab this smaller display here and drag and drop it to where I want it to go. So I actually have my laptop underneath my monitor, so that's why I keep it positioned there. But if you get that kind of virtual setup right, it makes it easier to drag windows between your two monitors. And of course, it doesn't work on system preferences, but if you have rectangles still set up, all of your snapping will still work. It will be a little bit harder to get it to snap right on the monitor edge, but if you're in Chrome and you kind of drag it and snap it over to the left, your snapping will still work as well.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any questions on the external monitors? I don't want anyone to panic on that. That takes a little while to get used to, although I do need to warn everyone that once you get used to it, working without it is much, much harder. So they're a great tool to have multiple monitors. I don't know any developers. I know a lot of developers, and I don't think I know any developers that work with one monitor on the regular. You know, when you're traveling, it's one thing, but having multiple monitors is just super helpful to be able to have multiple things up at once. And if you're still kind of struggling with it or still figuring out, that's okay. Just keep in mind that this is only like, we're on week 2, right? You may be new to Mac, you may be new to having an external monitor. That's okay. Over time, you're going to settle into it. And by the time we get to week 23, which is in person, you're going to be cursing us that it's in person because you don't have your monitor and you're struggling to juggle all the windows. So we will get to that coming up. Any other questions for the second monitor? Okay. So what we are going to do from here is we are going to break out into breakout rooms, and you guys are going to have 15 minutes to wrap up the car project wireframes. So if you guys are already done, you can use this time as a chance to go back over previous outlines, kind of work together on any homeworks that you may have struggled with, whatever. But we're going to give everyone just 15 minutes to kind of get their stuff into Figma. And then what we'll do, we'll come back together in 15 minutes, and everyone, you'll choose one person in your project to kind of share their screen, and they can talk through what you did in the car project wireframing. So give me a minute to get the breakout room set up. We're going to have 5 breakout rooms, and let participants choose, and we're going to say controls, music, climate, settings, and I'm missing one more.
Navigation.
Navigation, thank you. Save me from having to open up the Figma doc. Okay, so we're gonna go in breakout rooms, and then at 6:30, I will close the breakout rooms, and you'll all kind of come back together into this room. So I'm gonna go ahead and open the rooms now. And then down at the bottom, you should have a breakout rooms button. You can click on that, and then based off of whatever group you're in, you can go ahead and join that group. And what that will do is kind of put you in your own little separate Zoom meeting with your group members. Before you guys do that, though, does anyone have any questions on the car assignment?
No.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I do have a question. I don't see any choice for like persistent.
That I think I put that under settings.
Oh, okay.
Hold on, I can close the rooms. Did we have a settings team? I think I may have mixed. Let me just pull up the thing.
Yeah, I think persistent was like its own group, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I probably not being consistent in what I called it. Music, nav, climate. I'm in the wrong doc.
So basically, we were like all the data that needs to be displayed all the time, basically.
Sorry, this doc got edited. Music, nav, climate. So let's just say controls. I'm going to change that to persistent because we did have a settings group, right?
I'm pretty sure.
We had controls. We had controls, persistent, music, climate control, maps, and GPS.
There was a settings group, but each one of the groups has the settings part because it was supposed to be on the left side. And then the other groups will be working on the right side, depending on what they were working on.
Thank you. Okay, so persistent, music, nav, controls, and climate. I think that's everyone.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm going to reopen these rooms, and then if you have any questions,
I'm completely lost. I have no idea where the breakout rooms are, and I haven't done anything in contribution to this because I have
Really
no
quick,
idea what I'm
Christina,
doing.
remember what we did? The group, it was me, you, and Torres at the end of last class, and we started writing on the whiteboard, explaining how we would create an interface for like a car
Yeah.
center console. Okay, this is a continuation of that. So we're gonna break out into those same groups. It's me, you, and Torres, and we're just gonna kind of continue with outlining what our group, which is the persistent value, what our responsibility is to have on the screen. Does that make sense?
Where is that? Where do I find
so
that?
down at the
Right.
bottom, it will say breakout rooms
On
Right.
what
And
page? In
in,
Figma?
in Zoom.
Oh, in Zoom. Oh, okay.
And so everyone should be able to click on the breakout rooms down at the bottom and then just jump into whatever group that you were in before.
Mm,
You know where the screen sharing was, where you pressed it? Look to the left, to the right. I should say breakout rooms right after, right between reactions and live scripts.
oh, I see. Stop video, screen share. I just have the little tiny square up. Do I need the main page? Zoom.us?
No. So in
Oh.
the screen that you can see all of us, right
Yeah.
next to share screen, one or two icons down, it should say breakout rooms.
No, next to share screen is reactions, apps, whiteboard, more,
Okay, so
participants.
try click on more and see if it's under there.
Oh, it is. Oh, phew. Okay. Oh, okay. There we go. Thank you.
Yep. Brian and Branding, do you need any help getting into your groups?
Oh no, I'm fine. It just when I went in before, it kind of left me from this one. So okay, I'm head over now.
Yeah. Everyone should start popping back in here.
Hey, sorry about that. I just figured out how to use the stands for these portable screens.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. I know that everyone's probably at a different level of feeling ready to present, but that's okay. Again, this is the goal of this is you're not going to get a grade on this assignment, right? It's just to get you exposed to Figma, playing around with it. I know we've got a lot of ground to cover, so I don't want you guys to panic. But we're going to go around and have each group kind of just talk through what they've designed. And then keep in mind that this is a show and or tell, right? So if there were ideas that you had that you did not get a chance to get into your design, feel free to kind of just touch on them. But we are going to start with the music group. So if someone in the music group wants to share their screen, and then any one of you can kind of come off mute and kind of talk through what you came up with.
Okay, I'll share my screen.
Cool.
I'm using my other laptop as a monitor. Would that show?
We're looking at your Figma right now. Oh, Jordan sharing his
Oh,
Figma.
okay,
I'm sorry.
even better. That works. That works.
Okay. So talk us through kind of what you were thinking, what requirements you hit, what struggles you ran into, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so the struggles we ran into is we forgot to make a wireframe. So we worked together through Figma. That was actually pretty useful. As a team to create this took us like, I don't know, a minute or two. That's the only struggle I know of. I feel like we got everything we wanted, like the main components down. Trying to open the Slack to look at our requirements. I'm pretty sure, Jordan, if you want to add your input, that'd be appreciated, because I think we've got everything down.
Sorry about that. Okay. So yeah, when we were working through it, it was really simple, really quick, especially with a team. The one thing I did to make it easier is kind of for controls, stuff like this. You type in like search bar icons, you find something like this, grab the picture real quick. See if this does it. Oh my God, this takes forever. Either one works. Copy. Close out of this. Go over to, where's my Figma? Right here. Click on the element. That didn't work. Okay. All right, but basically what I did is I grabbed in a search bar real quick, or a buttons bar real quick, and just threw it on there. Everything that we tried to do, we tried to make it so that the persistent stayed on the left and there was the persistent at the bottom. All we did was add like previous, current, and next for album arts. We added the buttons along the bottom there with the interface, as well as some of the information that would appear. The search bar up top, I was going to include an icon. It's just that we got pulled out of the meeting room a little bit too quick. And typically how we do that is just you open a rectangle right there and then command copy, command paste right into that. And it'll bring up the image like it did right here. I don't really know what else to say.
We just didn't get to add the little timestamp plus scrubber.
Yeah,
so like you could scrub to the music and things like that. But other than that, I feel like we got.
Awesome. Yeah, this really hits the nail on the head. If you had more time to work on it, you could start putting in like multiple screens worth, right? You could say like, hey, when they tap on the search bar, what does that look like? Does it need to pull up a keyboard? Does it have like suggestions in it? And then, you know, what do the search results look like and that kind of stuff. But this is really awesome work, and you got a lot of the requirements down, and hopefully got the chance to think through, oh, wow, there's a lot going on the screen to make sure that keeps working. Before we move on to the next group, I know Jason's in the call, and just wanted to give him a chance to introduce himself.
Sure. Hey, guys. So I was out last week, but just want to make sure that I popped in, want to introduce myself. So, you know, I'm the student success representative. We'll just be trying to schedule times to meet with you each month, really just check in how stuff's going with class, how are things you know, going with just the progress of capstone, really just kind of working towards your goal of being a developer. Sometimes stuff comes, I know it sounds like a bad omen, but it seems like every cohort, every student has at least one crisis. Like maybe it's something big, it might be something small, but just really, you know, kind of my goal is to be your go-to person to try to help figure out what we can do to help. Obviously our goal is for all of you guys to make it successfully through the program, get the assignments in, have a kick butt capstone, and then when you pitch that, be able to just kind of go off, apply to jobs, get interviews, and then get that developer job that you guys are wanting. So yeah, I'm excited that it'll be my fourth cohort working with Careers in Code. So it's very neat, you know, to see students like Ariel and a lot of your other TAs come through the program. And really, like Max was saying, really see us kind of tinker and change things through the program to really try to make it a better and better experience. So I'll be meeting with you guys for that. I also help manage the stipends. I know I saw a little bit of questions in there. So it's awesome that between the grant and Center State CEO, we will have a $1,400 for this cohort for you guys to get reimbursed for that. It's going to work out to 5 payments of $230 and then a final payment of $250. As I get more information from Center State CEO, I will pass that on to you guys. It'll be the requirements in there. Basically, it's attending class. If I remember, I believe it was like 80% class attendance rate, and just really be in good standing. If someone just doesn't show up for a month, Max will let me know, hey, I haven't seen, you know, Susie for a month. then it would be for then, then that student wouldn't be eligible for the stipend if they're just not showing up and participating. There will be some financial forms that I'll have to send out just because it's more than $600 a year, so it'll be counted as income. But it's money that you guys can use, no strings attached. You can use for, monitor, mouse, if you want to get a website, a domain, you can use really anything you want. If you want to get groceries, you want to go out for dinner, it's really, it's money that you guys are earning through participating in this program, coming to class, doing the homework. So it's, we're excited to be able to offer that. So yeah, just again, really, really excited to meet you guys. I will send my kind of Calendly in the Slack channel. Feel free to schedule time with me. And then I'll be kind of reaching out to you guys. Just, if I don't hear from you, just to reach out to try to schedule a time. They're not painful, check-ins. It really helps me to, meet you guys, see what's important to you guys, see what sort of jobs that you guys are interested in so that I can really try to help, best support you guys. But again, very excited. Really been awesome to see the stuff that you guys have been working on for today, and really excited to continue to see where you go.
Thanks so much, Jason. Any questions for Jason?
Yes. What's your role in this? Are you like a career coach, or like do you like help us find jobs? Like what do you specialize in?
Yeah, no, very good call. So so basically my main job is to try to help you guys get through the program successfully. So if stuff comes up like, I don't know, like, hey, my mom's super sick, I'm going to be like MIA for a week or two, I just can't join class. Obviously Max is your go-to, TAs are go-to, but really see how we can support you. Hey, I'm being evicted and I don't know where I'm going to stay. Like, hopefully, that doesn't happen, or, I'm just trying to think some of the other stuff. I have a health issue and I'm not able to, obviously not coming to class isn't this one, but really a lot of those kind of like specific kind of issues that might come up, but also really Laura helps with a lot of the career coach, really guiding a lot of, resume, LinkedIn, a lot of that stuff. I like to check in, also how you're doing on the capstones, and really just some of that, like, what's your goal? What sort of developer job are you looking for? Is it front end? Is it back end? What sort of volunteer experience? What sort of developers can you connect to that are in the field that can help you? So really some of those kind of connecting the dots. Like I said, I'm not an expert in it, but as someone who, similar to Ariel, who's kind of transitioned into more of a tech focused career, later in life, in my late 30s, I just have a little bit of experience in that. So that's part of it for the kind of long answer, Schneider, but very good question.
Gotcha. Understood. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions? Cool. All right. Well, I'll jump off. Again, nice to meet you guys. You guys have a nice night.
Thanks,
Have a good
Jason.
one.
Okay, so let's move on to the climate team. Does someone from the climate team want to share their screen and kind of talk through the music team set a perfect example of what we're looking for in just a couple minutes?
I got taken out of the whole.
Alba, do you want me to share my screen and then you can talk about it?
Sure, that's fine. All right, so we had we divided the section of the climate and we went into different screens. So we have the primary screen right here, which would have the on and off button, which technically you just press it to turn it on. Then if you press the climate button for the air control, then you will be sent to the second screen, which you could do for just the air to come forward, to come from the top and forward, or from the bottom and forward, or all sides. Then if you touch the next control screen, it will take you down further to climate control, which you have the option of having heat and AC, the speed of the air coming in, and of course, what degrees you want the temperature to be at to be controlled in that area. If you press the window defrost control, then it will take you to the defrost, where you could have the option of the windshield defrost, the back windshield defrost, and the mirror defrost. And then if you press the heating option control for the seats, then you would have the option of the driver's seat, passenger side, back side, and then the temperature up and down.
Awesome work. So one thing to think about is, all right, we've got those different layers of menus. Maybe we need to include a back button, right? Because, hey, we could get, well, from the climate screen, we could just hit that in the bottom right and have it take it back there. But that may be one thing that you think through of, well, what's it actually look like switching between those menus? But I love seeing you guys getting creative about saying, hey, I've got multiple things. Is this going to be overload if we try and include it all on one screen? And sometimes it is, right? So there are lots of different ways of solving that with either windows or tabs or, being able to kind of navigate through all of that. But this is really awesome work. I'm glad to see not only that you kind of hit all the different options in that climate, but also went out and sourced icons, right? And got a better idea of like, hey, we're not the first ones who had to deal with air position. So why don't we try and go and find someone that, has those icons already made and we can maybe reuse them. So awesome work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything that popped up that was a surprise challenge or anything that you want to share with the team?
No, we were working on it last minute right now because we have another member that wasn't in the class and she was supposed to do one of the screens. So we were working on that screen to try to finish it off to come together. But we didn't have enough time to actually work through like how to get back to the other screen or from one screen to another, or how to figure that stuff out because there wasn't a lot of time that we had to figure it out.
Yeah, no problem. And obviously there's a lot that goes into that screen, right? Everyone has a different level that they need to integrate into that. So no big deal. Again, it's not a homework assignment, right? Where you have to get everything done on it. So I definitely will appreciate a time crunch and don't want you guys to think that any feedback that I'm providing is like a criticism, just other things to potentially think about. Next up, we've got the controls team. Someone from the controls team want to share their screen?
Yeah, I'll share mine. 1 second. I forgot I was on mute, sorry.
You're fine.
I forgot how to zoom in, like on Figma.
So you're sharing your laptop monitor right now and not the external monitor? Did you mean to share the external one?
How do I do that?
So if you stop your screen share, you should be able to restart it. And then the first two will be desktop 1 and desktop 2. Just pick whichever one has the Figma on it that you want to share. There you go. Okay, and then 2 fingers to pinch in, kind of like an iPhone. Yep, there you go. And then 2 fingers to scroll around as well.
Okay. Well, we had originally wrote ours on a whiteboard at the classroom.
Okay.
So kind of lost some information. We did take a picture of it. I don't know if you can see it though. So we got mirrors, right? No, mirrors right here.
Yep.
And then I don't know. We didn't get the finish, but we basically just had the emojis for what button to click, and that's basically as far as we got. Like, got the backup camera, the fuel, the tire pressure, the oil pressure, driving modes. I think this was lights, headlights, seatbelt alert, and then that's basically as far as we got.
Awesome. Yeah, amazing how many different sections of the controls there are, right? Amazing when you think about when you have your dashboard, how many different lights can come on there and how many different things you can do in your car. And if you think about like whenever you get in a rental car, right, how it's like, or someone else's car to drive it, and you're like, whoa, how do where are the headlights on this? You know, I thought they're always over here and they're not there. So thinking through all of those different controls and ultimately like breaking it down, because if you handed this over to a developer, they'd be like, well, what do you want to happen when you click on the lights? Do you want them just to go on and off? What about high beams, right? So you can start getting into that. And obviously this was a time crunch, so I didn't expect you to be able to get all of that done, but starting to think through, well, what happens when I click on lights? Do I go to another page? Does it show up as a pop-up? Can I fit all of that on one screen? So those are all factors to think into, but you did a great job of identifying kind of like the most important features and bringing them all onto one page to be able to work with that.
Yes, thank you.
Anything that popped up or that you want to share with the team?
I don't know, it's kind of hard, like navigating Figma a little bit. Like we were trying to find emojis, it was kind of hard. Like, and when you do the words and stuff, you got to keep sizing it. Then you got to size the letter box so you can text into it. It's a lot.
Yes, yes. So next cohort will probably be focusing on like just paper wireframes, which hopefully make the exercise easier to focus on like the content and the layout. And then we might introduce Figma a little bit later on to kind of get you, that practice with the wireframe.
Okay.
Navigation is up next.
Sorry, just had to unmute myself. So yeah, for navigation, we kind of came to realize how many different screens are going to be needed for that. So unfortunately, we weren't able to do a lot within Figma, but I have a couple of drawing markups here, mockups. So please anyone let me know if you can't read or see anything too well. It's my terrible handwriting here. But so for the main screen, we would have the map along with the search bar at the top here. And then let me see here, location suggestions such as like iconic places to visit or places of interest, traffic, weather, overlay, and then a orientation type of thing. So a straight northwest, east, south kind of thing versus the physical location orientation of the vehicle. That would be the main page. And then next, did just like a simple markup of a text or vocal screen. So you tap the middle of the screen, speak now, speak clearly, and then you can say whatever command you would like. Next was a kind of short markup of the settings mode. So I mean, I could have done a better job of splitting the different sections up, but for example, like dark mode, distance units, if miles, kilometers, voice selections, if you'd like a male voice, female voice, different accents, and then map history. So if something isn't favorited or frequented too often and you went somewhere once or two times and you just wanted to pull it up really quickly, and then of course the terms of service agreement or things like that at the very bottom. And then I also did a short example of what the search bar would look like. So you would have the search bar. Oh, the search bar is pretty much a constant, but this would be, when you actually touch it and look into it from there. It would have recents, favorites, or bookmarks at the top, and then, or anything that you have favorited, and then a couple of previous options there. Go to the next page. And then if you were to tap on the suggested destinations, this would be an example of it, for so to speak. So if you were to look for museums or restaurants, it would have each, sorry, smell this out a bit. It would have like each location with the name, location. You tap on it, it'll give you a bit more information. And then finally, the traffic weather overlay. I was thinking it could be its own thing, but at the same time, you know, it would just be supplementary information for what you already have. So it would just, you know, kind of have the weather in one corner that's not too obtrusive, and then the local speed, and then within the map area, it would further have any traffic delays, construction, suggested routes, or things like that from there. But I definitely started to realize how many more pages would be necessary to give examples of each and every different page or option. So that was one aspect of this that I started, was like, oh yeah, navigation, that'll be simple. And then it's just like, oh, wait, and then you have like 10 pages. So yeah, that was
Awesome
an
work.
example.
Yeah, and you can really see, like, as that user experience, right, what it would take to, okay, well, what happens when we click on these things, right? You can almost feel like, all right, I could get in that car and start navigating around, which is really awesome and good work.
Awesome.
All right, we're gonna, question, Jennifer?
Curious, do you want to see what little we did on Figma, or is that good?
That I think we're fine. I want to get through the persistent team just so that we can take break as close to 7 as possible. So we'll wrap up with that and then dive into the next exercise at the after break.
All right, I'll present for persistent, and it should be pretty quick. We really didn't, between like, you know, group issues and, you know, who was there and missed stuff, we really didn't have much time to actually do anything in Figma. We did get something on the whiteboard last class. So we basically, we're just gonna go off of an explanation right now, like with the lack of Figma, but I think it was a good exercise for our group to kind of just even brainstorm and kind of like think about what kind of things would be in persistent value. So basically we're the menu on the left box of all the templates that everybody's been seeing. So as a group, we kind of agreed that since the information is going to be there all the time, you should keep it very efficient, give you the kind of the stuff that a driver would expect to see all the time. So we kind of narrowed that down to speed, the time, the temperature, any kind of maintenance related issues, like any warnings or anything, there would be like a slot where, you know, that would work in. And lastly was the fuel. And beyond that, so instead of just having these as like just word options, we agreed that these icons should be like dynamic. So in the place of speed, you would have like a number that changes as your speed increases or decreases. Of course, with time, you can have it follow the actual time. Temperature would show you the changing temperature outside the vehicle. If it's colder, if it's colder, hotter. Maintenance, as I mentioned, would have, you know, a warning slot for if your tires are low, or you know, it needs an oil change. There would just be a spot for, you know, icon to show up there. And lastly, the fuel, you know, some kind of gauge that shows you, you know, in real time how your fuel is doing. So that's where we were. Mentally, we were kind of there, and given more time, we would have been able to kind of get this out. But I'm glad we got to that point of understanding.
Yeah, and definitely an important part to identify all those different requirements, right? It's amazing when you get into Figma or on a whiteboard or whatever, and it's just like blank, and you're like, well, where do I even start, right? And oftentimes the right answer is not in Figma. It's, you know, just getting that list together and identifying all the different things that pop up. Because while you're designing, of course, there will be other things that pop up of, oh, well, there's the position button of where the air is coming out. Now we need a whole nother, you know, wireframe for that. So getting as many of those things planned in advance makes it much easier when you get to that design phase of being able to, you know, work on all the different versions of it. So that is almost the end of this car exercise. When we come back from break, I'm going to actually show you the inspiration for this exercise. But we will wait until after break for that. Any final comments? Brendan, go ahead.
Yeah, it really was just so interesting to once you get into the thick of it, to have that realization of just like, oh yeah, I need about like 10 other screens to convey all this information. And then thinking about, all right, so the driver's going to be on the left side, so you or
Yep.
yeah, left side. I'm getting mixed up. Yeah, I mean, yeah, even regional differences like that, where the driver is going to be oriented in regards to where the technology is going to be produced and how much information is pertinent on that side versus, oh, if you want suggestions, that could actually go on the other side because it's not going to be that dire,
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that was really interesting to think about when you got into it.
Absolutely. And you'll find that no matter what project you're on, right? So on the portfolio site, you're like, oh, I need all my projects to show up. And then you start putting all the information in for those projects and you go, this is way too much information. This needs to go on another page. And then so you have to figure out what's important enough to be on this page and what's important enough to, be on that other page that has more detailed information. So you will find that probably not now, but when you get into your capstones in a couple weeks, this will be a good exercise to remember and start planning through. It's not a requirement to have your wireframes done in Figma for the capstone, but it's a really good idea to think through wireframes at some point to make sure that you get everything in your capstone that you want. But in order to get that, you need your requirements document first, right? Now we get back into that software development lifecycle of realizing that there's a lot that's going to go into this. But again, your capstones, we'll have more details about them a little bit later on. Any other final comments about this?
It and done. As Brandon was saying, as you got deeper into it, you really got to think about all these other things that goes into these other screens and stuff. So yeah, now I have a taste of how it is to like think about that user experience instead of just being the one that experiences it,
Exactly. All right, any final comments? Cool. Well, we are pressed on time tonight, so you only got a 20-minute break. Let's be, sorry, Christina, did you have a question? Okay. We'll go on break. Let's be back at 7:30. Welcome back, everyone. So I wanted to, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Cool. So I wanted to show you guys the actual inspiration for this project, which is my car's screen. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick overview of, like, you can see how the navigation shows up over here on the right. You've got the persistent controls over on the left. And then for things like climate, if you tap down at the bottom, you can see all of the different modes that engage there, right? So you can see the power on and off. You can see the seat heaters down here, like in the bottom, right? Then you can see, like, they do this tab interface over on the right. So if you go into the rear section, you can see the rear seat heater controls, right? So that same idea of sometimes that there are multiple tabs for each screen that you're working on. And then for things like the music, that's kind of all controlled in this Bluetooth section here. And then you can pull it down and anchor it down at the bottom. So your play and pause and skip, everything that you have saw was in there. And then I know someone touched on, like, the backup cameras, right? So that's also in this persistent section down at the bottom, so that when you tap into the cameras, you can actually see the cameras that are around the car. And then I think the final section that you guys worked on was the control section. So that's this car icon down in the bottom. And when you tap on the controls there, that pops up all the different controls. So you guys already touched on, like, the lighting controls, which are right up here. But then there's other information in here, like the wipers and the glove box and adjusting the mirrors and the steering wheel and all of that kind of stuff. Not to mention all of the other settings that you can kind of see down the screen here, which really show you how much goes into being able to control everything from the screen. Does anyone have any questions or is curious to see any part of this before I head back inside to the computer?
Is everything controlled on that screen? Like literally everything?
Everything except the drive mode. So, like, drive, reverse, neutral is controlled on a stalk on the wheel. And then the only other thing that is not controlled on this is the turn signals. Everything else is built into the car, down to, like, opening the glove box, adjusting the wheel and the mirrors. Even your lighting is all controlled from this screen.
Does that ever feel overwhelming? Like, I can't imagine driving and then having to worry about this big old screen instead of just having some buttons here and there.
It is surprisingly not problematic. Obviously, there's a little bit of a learning curve because, like, when you want to turn up the temperature or down the temperature, like, you get used to, like, just sliding your finger here, and that's what adjusts the temperature up and down. But I mean, everything down to, like, the vents on this car are all controlled from the touchscreen. So if you don't want the air coming right at you, instead of having, like, these modes over here, you can literally, like, redirect the vents, and that's where the air will come out. So I know a lot of people feel like they're, like, overwhelmed by this in the beginning, but it is something that you get used to really quickly. And then even down to, I know the persistent team thought through this, but here are all the warning lights that come up on the side. And then when you go into drive mode, it will show your speed up here as well. So literally everything comes down to this one screen.
So it's got to be voice activated, right?
No, well, it has a voice mode, but no, everything's a touch screen.
That's not safe for driving per se. Say you got to control them and you got to look down and you're driving. So it's not really idealistic, is it?
Teslas have the lowest crash rating out of any car in the category.
I want to bring up a point, and I think it was kind of related to what Schneider mentioned about, like, all the controls and, like, everything being on one screen. I could be wrong. If I'm not mistaken, the Tesla is the first, if not, like, the first, like, production car to have, like, basically everything on the center console.
Yes.
Right. And so I think that's a good, like, example to think about how the developers and, like, how the designers who design this interface, like, how progressive and forward they had to think to like basically shift pretty much anyone who's driving a Tesla for the first time. That's basically their first experience with everything being in the middle. And you know, as we're going through the course, I just look at that as like, wow, that's just another way to think about. You're probably making things for people that might be experiencing it for the first time. It might be you know, an interface that they never experienced, and you have to think about how to make that as easy as possible. Like you have to think what's the best way for a person to interact with a center console if they're also driving, you know, and there's a way to do that. You just have to do it. You have to put a lot of thought into it, you know.
Yeah, and the crazy part of it is that this keeps on changing. So I'll get a software update every couple months. They just came out with a software update at Christmas where they changed this bottom bar and made it so like you could customize what icons show up down at the bottom. And a lot of people were like, we hate that you remove the seat heaters. We want to be able to put the seat heaters back. That's something that we use all the time. And so a lot of UX is like, you've got to take a stab at it, but that's the beauty of a software design, is that you do have the ability to update it most of the time. And so, you know, you get a design out there, and I can tell you the first Tesla screen looked nothing like this. In fact, the first Teslas from 10 years ago, they were all a vertical screen instead of horizontal. And so they've modified it over the years, and they've realized that horizontal is more safe because you get more screen real estate kind of where you're focused as a driver. So it is very interesting. To your point, yes, there is a lot of safety that goes into these design aspects, but you can see that, you know, obviously you guys only had what, an hour or two to work on this project. There's an entire design team at Tesla whose full-time job is just to make these interfaces better and safer.
I can barely multitask to pay attention to my GPS, yet alone a whole entire, yeah, that's not the car for me. I would see myself crashing. I mean, like,
You'd probably be surprised if you give it some time.
Like my perception, like my husband can look down and stay in the lines. If I look down, I'm off to the side of the road.
So the good news is this car can pretty much drive for you.
OMG.
Driver assist or autopilot?
No,
I
no,
feel like
thank
that's
you.
mismarketed. I don't feel like it's fully autonomous autopilot. It's more of an advanced driver assist, in my opinion.
It is, and Tesla's legal team will remind you of that. But it pretty much, when you get on the highway, it will do most of the highway driving for you. But anyway, back to the interface. Does anyone want to see anything before I head back inside? Is anyone curious to see like what one section looks like or how you do something on this?
Can you pull up Netflix?
I can. So if you go down into the apps, you can go into the theater, and then you get options for all of your streaming services here. You have to be in park before someone asks that question. You cannot use any of these apps unless your car is in park, which is actually displayed. I don't know if you can see it, but it's displayed up at the top. And then when you go into Netflix in that app, it automatically just turned off my headlights for me. And in 1 second, it will pull up and show me. I'm not signed in, but you get access to the whole Netflix page here.
Wait, is this your car?
Yes.
Holy crap. Okay.
So Max,
yes,
personal question there. When it's doing the like it can show you when there's people near the car, things like that, what would that be listed under? Would that be part of your
so that shows up on the left side of the screen. So you'll see when I shift into drive, it kind of moves the car around. And I doubt you can pick it. It's kind of trying to pick up the lane lines there. But this is powered by the 8 cameras that are surrounded by the car. So if someone were walking their dog down the street right now, it would show up under the persistent display section, because that's what this section of the screen is supposed to represent, what the car is seeing around. So like if a car passed me on the road right now, you would actually see a little car show up that would drive by my car. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's fine. I just didn't know when they went into coding that, if they were putting that into the cameras or if there was a different part of development that particularly went into.
Yeah, so that field is called CV for computer vision. And that is literally could be your full-time job, right? And a lot of computer vision is artificial intelligence driven. But the computer vision is what Tesla calls it Tesla vision, is what the car is seeing around it.
One last question regarding like how they changed the user experience. So is it like over the air updates based on user feedback, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you pull open the software section here, you can scroll down and they'll say like your car software is up to date as of August 3rd. And then it connects to Wi-Fi just like any other device in your house. So I have it just connected to my Wi-Fi network. And then as long as it's connected to Wi-Fi, they'll send you a push notification and say, do you want to install the software update at 2 a.m.? You can't drive the car while it's doing the software update, but it takes about 20 minutes. And it's just like updating your phone or your computer. You know, it installs the update and then you get the new features. And then you can also go into the release notes and they'll show you kind of all the new information that is built into this release. So the last update was an update to the theater mode where they made it easier to switch out a full screen. And then there are like other updates that they push to it. And the car has software just like any other piece of hardware, right? So there are all these different versions. And then if you're curious to see what's part of the update, you can tap on it and get more information.
So could somebody hack your car?
Yes. Could someone hack your car?
I don't know. It's
Probably, right? So yeah, so a lot of cars now, it's not just about being connected to the internet. A lot of cars can be hacked, right? We see more and more cars have their own apps and be able to unlock the car. There are certain things that are not able to be remotely controlled, right? So even though the car in autopilot mode can turn the wheel or hit the brakes, that system is separated off. So the only sources of input for it are literally the wheel and the brake pedal and the accelerator and all of that stuff. With that said, there are levels of security built in. They use something called a VPN, a virtual private network, to make sure that the only people who can send signals to your car are from a Tesla server. So there are levels of protection and encryption built into the car, just like are built into your banking data as well, right? So when online banking first came out, people were worried that, you know, people on the internet were going to break into their bank accounts and steal all their money. And the security evolved over time and got to the point where, you know, very few people don't use online banking at this point. Same goes for car security as well, right? So Tesla fortunately has had no incidences of someone being able to break in the car without physical access to the interior of the car. With that said, Tesla actually sponsors people to find what they call CVEs, critical vulnerability exploits. And if you find one of those issues and report it to Tesla, Tesla will actually pay the security researcher for that find in order to make that feature more secure or to plug that vulnerability. And that's not just Tesla. Apple does that, Microsoft does that, Facebook does that. If you are interested in kind of getting into that security field after graduating careers in code, there are a couple students who are interested in saying, like, I want to be a hacker, right? Like I want to work in security and become a discoverer of those vulnerabilities. And that is an entire profession that you can go into and either work at Tesla or any other software company on improving security, or you could become what is known as a black hat hacker, where you try and find those vulnerabilities and then either report them to the company to get patched, at which point you get paid what is called a bounty, or you release that exploit, and then there's obviously more nefarious things going on there and some legal concerns as well.
One last question.
Yeah.
I heard that this is all programmed in like C or C# languages. So does Tesla have its own OS kind of thing? Like,
they do have their own OS. It is like most operating systems, it is built on top of Linux. A lot of any company that's focused on hardware will typically have their own operating systems. But that does not mean that it's not using the same programming languages, right? So, for example, Android is written all in Java, but Android is a specific operating system based off of the Linux kernel, as is Mac OS is Linux or Unix based, and a couple other things. So yes, this is a proprietary operating system, but there's no kind of low level access to this. So right now I couldn't write an app for my car if I wanted to, although there are cars on the market that are starting to introduce third-party app stores, and you see a lot of that with CarPlay and Android Auto as well, which is surprisingly something that this car does not support. You cannot use CarPlay or Android Auto in this car.
as of now, maybe.
As of now. Good point. Very good point. Cool. Any other final questions before we dive into the code here?
Would you be able to go into the settings menu really quick?
Sure. So that's all under the controls. So the controls are kind of the quick access things here.
I'm so sorry. Max, I'm so sorry to cut you off. I actually meant service. I saw that earlier and I was like, what is under there?
So here's where my PSI is all reported. I actually have to top off my air pressure. The entire owner's manual, the car doesn't come with an owner's manual. So if you go into that, it's literally the owner's manual that you would normally find in your glove box, if it decides to load.
And I'm assuming you could like airdrop that to yourself or something like that.
Yep.
Wow.
It's built into the Tesla app, so you could just go in there and get access to any of that. And then this breaks down kind of all the charging and the maintenance and all the stuff that you would normally find in the manual. And then there's a couple other things in the service menu. You can put it in towing mode. You can adjust the headlights. You can do like calibration of things. The car wash mode is super helpful. So when you're going into a car wash, it turns off like auto braking and turns off the wipers so they don't go on. It locks the charge port door. So if a high pressure jet hits the charge port, it won't automatically open the door. Kind of cool things like that, where when I first got this car 2 years ago, that car wash mode didn't exist. And so when I went to the car wash, I'd have to go into the settings and turn like 4 or 5 things different off, just to make sure that I could go through and like, you know, the braking wouldn't engage or something like that. And now it's as simple as going into this menu and turning that on.
Thank you.
I saw a couple.
What type of safety features do you have on there? Is it like
So?
seatbelt?
Yeah, so on here, you've got Sentry Mode, which is basically the security camera that records around the car. So when you get out of the car, it will basically have a security camera system running. There are a dash cam. So basically while you're driving on the road, it automatically records all that video footage. And then if you want to save the footage, like if someone stops in front of you and you hit your horn, it automatically saves that into the dash cam. And then there are other kinds of options in here, like you can put a pin on the glove box, you can limit the speed, you can basically make sure that the mobile app works, and then there's a parking brake, and if you need to power off the car for whatever reason, you can. And also to note, there are some other safety features that are scattered. So this is a good UX design point. you would think like forward collision warning and all of that stuff would be under safety, but they consider that all part of their autopilot system. So instead of adding even more to this menu, what they did is they put that information under autopilot. And so there's additional safety information in here where you can adjust like the forward collision warning, how early do you want that to go off? Or the lane departure avoidance, if you're like drifting and driving out of the line, do you want it to just beep at you, or do you want it to assist and actually turn the wheel back into your lane? So there's all kinds of safety features that you would think are under the safety section. And at one point they were, but because autopilot got so robust, they ended up moving it out of the safety section and into its own own section called autopilot. Ariel, was there anything in the chat that I should answer before I head back inside?
No, I was talking smack. You're fine.
Oh, great. Can't wait to read that. Any other final questions?
No.
Cool. I am going to head inside. Give me 1 second. So hopefully that gives you kind of a real world example of, I think all of us were going through that exercise, and we've all obviously been in a car before and had a good idea. But this is something where, you know, you get a little bit more of a real world example of what happens when, what happens in the real world when our interfaces actually get used and exposed to end users. Because to several of your points, it is a lot about safety and thinking through all those design aspects. Brandon, I saw your hand up. Is that an old question?
Well, like, not necessarily a question, but just like a commentary about like how interesting that certain features can go from one section to another. And then from there, how do you communicate that, hey, you know, dark mode isn't any longer in one section, it's in another section, for example. So it's another thing I didn't really think about. That's interesting.
Yeah, so release notes are important there, and you'll have some users who like, you know, get the notification and install the update right away. Tesla, as with a lot of other software companies, will do incremental rollouts where they don't actually push that software feature available to everyone all at once. So sometimes it will take 2 or 3 weeks because they want to make sure that the people who have gotten the new update aren't providing negative feedback. So you can also do slow rollouts there. There are some people who could care less and are a couple software versions behind. And you get people who, you know, are chomping at the bit and want to install every update as soon as it's available. So I had owned the car for about a year where they released version 11, and I had been on version 10 for over a year. And my dad was in the car with me and was just laughing because like I couldn't figure out how to turn off the headlights. Like they had moved the headlight control on me. It was in that same spot for a year. And as with most updates, you get that immediate negative backlash, right? So you get the, I hate this, you know, any change is bad. And, you know, my dad was just laughing because he was like, you're the most technical person I know, and you can't figure out how to drive a car that you've had for over a year. And obviously there is some negative sentiment there, and that's, you get used to that as a developer, right? You get used to saying, okay, is it bad or is it different, right? Because sometimes we have to get used to that and adjust to that change. And now that we have, or now that I have it, you know, a lot of people like that. There were things that they changed, and there was a lot of feedback, like the seat heaters, and they moved the seat heaters back into the dock, and everyone was happy about it. Elon is a very polarizing person. Some people love him, some people hate him. I will keep my mouth shut on that, but his personal sentiment is any user interaction is bad user interaction. So his goal is to make it so you never have to use the touchscreen. The car automatically knows what you want before you can go to do it. While that is a great ideal, I think we will be employing UI designers at least for the next 30 years. You know, certain things are really cool, like the seat heaters you can put in auto mode, and when you first get in the car, they come on high and then they lower themselves down. But they don't always work. And there are times where I want that on full blast. I don't want it to lower down, right? So UI design is not going anywhere anytime soon.
On that note, I know like the newer Tesla models, there's some feature that's like, depending on where you park, the car knows where you want, like if you want to go reverse or whatever. I'm just like, I don't know about all that. I kind of want to do that myself. I don't want to rely on a car too much.
Yeah, and the good news is they don't take that away from you, right? You can always change the direction your car is going, and you just swipe on the screen on the left side of it and it shifts. But I do not have that high end of a Tesla, so I do not have that feature built in. I can't speak to that. Those new ones are quite literally twice the price of my car. So those are great new features, but you got to be pretty high end in order to get that kind of stuff.
So Max, real quick, and then I know we want to move past this. I had a question regarding the issues they're having, like they're getting water in them or they're locking them out. They're basically dying in people's driveways kind of thing. At what point is that something, I love that face you made, like this is new to you. At what point is that something they can fix in the computer system? Or, I mean, is that something that there's a special team for that? Or how does that exactly work when you're locked out of your car, it's not turning on, or, you know, you can't get into it with the entry? I mean, who does that? Who takes care of that?
Yeah, so good question. There are safety systems in place. So if your car completely dies, you need some way to be able to put it in towing mode, right? Because with electric cars, because they have regenerative braking, you can't tow them like you can tow other cars. So there is basically a little panel at the front of the car where you put in the tow hook, and it has two little wires on it. And if you attach those two little wires to literally a 9-volt or 12-volt battery, and the battery is completely dead, it will automatically pop open the driver door for you by just using the 9-volt battery. So there are safety systems in place that are a hardware issue, right? If your battery is dead, it does not matter how much software or how many Tesla engineers you have behind you, Tesla software engineers behind you, the battery is dead, right? There are certain physics and electrical systems that you cannot software update yourself around. However, most hardware is controlled by software, right? So Tesla does a very good job at identifying, hey, can this be fixed in the software? And if it can, they already have the infrastructure to roll that code out. And sometimes that's the hardest part, right? For traditional car manufacturers, it isn't that they can't fix it in the software. It's that in order to update the software in the car has to be brought into a car dealership and updated and all of that kind of stuff. But there are some issues that Tesla cannot get around. I had an issue with the heater in my car, and the sensors were recalled, right? No way around that. Someone has to come out and I have to take my car in, or Tesla has to send someone out to me to replace those sensors. There was no way that the software could fix it because it had just gone bad. So I don't want to sound like everything can be fixed with software, but Tesla does try to fix as much as it can with software because they know it will be a quicker way to get a fix out to the customers. And Tesla's not alone there, right? Like the Ford Mustang Mach-E, great car, software updates built into it, right? All connected over to the internet, connects to Wi-Fi, downloads updates just like the Tesla does. Brandon, go ahead.
I mean, you kind of touched on what I wanted to say a bit earlier, just that, we have to remember that it's not just Tesla making smart electronic vehicles. So, I mean, because we can see this in like so many different types of media and technology, like video games, for example. So like where one company has a short falling, i.e., when does override take place versus when is it fully autonomous? Someone else can just be like, oh, well, our cars can do this. And then, it's such an interesting little mini rat race in the tech field, I guess.
Absolutely. Yep. Always new technologies coming out, and you don't always have to be at the forefront of them. Ariel mentioned that New York just banned all gas vehicle sales by 2035. California also did that a couple weeks ago. I'm going to try and not have us go down an EV rabbit hole, because trust me, I could be talking until well past midnight on EVs, and I do not want to drag all of you through that. We are here to learn how to code, not how to discuss EVs. But if you do have any questions that pop up, you're welcome to attend office hours, and I'm happy to answer anything there that can be a little bit more tangential. But hopefully that was just a quick introduction into all of the different places that we see software, and identifying that it's not all just about the laptops in front of us. There is software kind of all around us and in every industry. And don't close yourself off to, well, I'm learning how to be a software engineer, I'm going to just make software. One thing that Laura will help you start to think about, and also Jason, is, well, where do you want to use that software? Because it's one of the only industries that you can apply to almost any other industry. There are not very many jobs that you can do anymore that do not involve a computer at some point. You could say, yeah, I'm on the construction site, but how do you manage your construction materials? How do you make sure your workers are there? How do you, right? Maybe it's not directly on a computer, but they're using a phone. They're using some apps for that. There are just so few jobs that you can do without some level of technology. And that is something to think about, because at the end of the program, you may say, I'll take any job in any industry. Or you may say, hey, I've got a specialization, or I've got an interest in this, and this is where I want to apply for different jobs and stuff. And that's a great thing to be thinking about earlier on in the program. Okay, any final notes? Notes 8:05. It's very frequent that I get ambitious in the outlines, and then those outlines end up shifting into other days. That is totally fine. Sorry, I just see Ariel commenting in the chat that I cannot wait to catch up on after this. But I want to buzz through a couple quick reminders and new things, and then we're going to get VS Code set up and call it a night. We're not going to get into the HTML tonight, but we are going to get your folder set up and your live share and all of that stuff. So first thing tomorrow, we can start writing code right out of the gate. A couple reminders for you guys. I was totally late on getting the pre-reading posted. Normally, I will have those posted by Thursday. I did not get a chance until today to post them. So if you pop open the pre-readings, these are all totally optional. These are all going to kind of set you up right for the week. And they are prioritized. So if you only get a chance to read one of them, the top link is what you're going to want to get into. Some of the links down in the bottom may be a little bit more in depth than you need to go, or have more content on them that you really need to read. You may actually want to take the approach of saying, I'm not going to do any of the pre-reading until I start to struggle. And if I'm struggling, then I'll go back and see if any of those concepts start to sink in. So this pre-reading is here. Like I said, they're totally optional. You don't even need to tell us if you did the pre-readings or not. Oftentimes there'll be articles. If you are a visual learner, these links may be helpful for you, but I just wanted to call them out. And these are under the assignment section, or if you go to modules in Canvas, you'll see the week 2 pre-reading here, and you can get access to all of the links from there. We have added another thing called OA. So if you see W2 D2 OA anywhere, that OA stands for optional assignment. So we did assignments almost every night in cohort 3, and it was complete overload, right? The assignments were smaller, but there were so many of them, students struggled knowing where to prioritize, right? So while I was going through the week 2 stuff, I realized that a lot of those optional assignments are good practice, but you don't necessarily need to turn them in or feel the pressure for that. So if you are back in Canvas, down here, I've got a couple OA assignments. If it says a specific day on it, I would recommend waiting until after that day to try the assignment. And then if it doesn't have a day on it, you could try that assignment at any point during week 2, or you could always come back to these, right? So if you get into week 3 and you're like, I'm struggling, I need to review those concepts, these are some additional resources or assignments that you can practice with. So we're a big fan of Free Code Camp here. Those are some exercises. If you are someone who likes to learn in little bite-sized chunks and getting the practice and then moving on, Free Code Camp is great for that. Free Code Camp can be overwhelming though, because it can be a 3 or 6 month course on its own. So I've broken these down into little pieces of it. You are welcome to bring these to one-on-ones, and whoever you're doing your one-on-one with should be able to help you with these optional assignments. But when you pop those open, there isn't anything on these to like turn in the assignment. You'll see that there's 0 points, and this is a bad one because it still says a file upload on it. I thought I had fixed all of these, but these are little assignments where you don't have to submit anything, but if you're looking for that extra practice, you can find them here. Does anyone have questions on optional assignments or the pre-readings? Hopefully this is just a reminder for everyone. If you got a 0 on your quiz or your assignment, it just means that you did not turn it in by the due date. Do not think that that 0 means you have permanently gotten a 0 for that assignment. If you turn in the assignment, we may be a little delayed in grading it because it's a little late, but we will regrade it without any penalty and give you the full points that you deserved for that assignment. So if you see a 0, you are still welcome to submit it, even if it's past the due date. We'll only give you a 0 after the due date, and then we'll give you the full grade without any penalty as soon as we get a chance to grade it. Don't see that 0 and think that it's too late to turn it in. All of our assignments allow for resubmissions. I know I said this in week 1. I'm going to say it again, and I'll say it at the beginning of class tomorrow. You do not need to feel like you need to code along. Some people will learn better by watching what I'm doing, taking notes, and then trying to do it on their own. I will also try and be pretty good about saying like, hey, this is a little side tangent. You don't need to follow me down this rabbit hole. I just want to show you this little feature, right? If at any point you feel like you don't know whether you should be following along or not, please just ask. But I just wanted to throw that out there. That just because I'm sharing my screen, just because I'm doing something, does not mean that you need to follow along with it. But if you are not following along with me, you should be taking your own notes, because you will need all of those notes in order to complete the homework assignment over the weekend.
Max, can I mention quick? So when I did cohort 2, if I could not code with it, there's times he will go through all of it as fast as possible at Roadrunner, and there's no way you can stay caught up. I have a notebook that I have kept, even though everything's technological. I have a literal spiral bound notebook that I filled out for cohort 2 that has helped me so far now, 2 cohorts later. And you can always message and ask, but there's also the YouTube videos, right, Max?
Yep.
Okay. You will get to learn to listen to Max on 2X. So those are going to be your best friend too. Sorry, go ahead.
And another great tip is make sure that if I say something where you're like, oh, I want to go back to see what he said, jot down the time. Because something that was not done in cohort 2 and only at the end of 3 was all of our videos are timestamped down at the bottom. So when you're on YouTube, you can be like, oh, I know he said it around 6:30 somewhere, or like, this is where I started to lose them. And to Ariel's point, I work off of a notebook every day, right? While we have Jira at work, and I use Trello for everything at Careers in Code, I often work 10 to 12-hour days. And the only way I can keep all of that straight is by having a notebook and just writing things down. So when I'm feeling overwhelmed, which you guys will feel at some point during class, don't be afraid to articulate it. Don't be afraid to, we have those polls so we can see kind of how you guys are doing. And if you need more time and I only have two or three poll votes in, you guys will get that extra time. But working on your note system is definitely an important thing to get into the swing earlier in the program, because it creeps up on you. It does get harder and harder because all the concepts build off of each other. Alba, go ahead.
So with that optional homework, will Code Academy also help with that, the free coding for the HTML and CSS and all of that?
Yes, I don't actually have Code Academy assignments mapped out as part of the optional homework assignments. However, I will say if you do an assignment or find a resource that is particularly helpful for you, don't just share it in the students' back channel. Shoot it over to me and I will include it in those optional assignments just so that everyone can benefit from them. But I have nothing against Code Academy. There are a lot of great coding resources out there. Ariel's used an app that has been super helpful. As those resources come in, don't be afraid to share them, and I'll like do a quick overview of them and then also share them out with everyone else so everyone can benefit from it. Not a competition. No one graduates top of their class here. You know, definitely all sharing. Ariel, are you shaking your head because you definitely were not top of your class?
That was rude. And also, yes, that's exactly why. But you will learn this is your best support network because there is no competition. And you're going to find out you can't do JavaScript, but the person next to you can, and they can't do SQL, but you can. Use it to your advantage and LinkedIn on everybody, and you'll be great.
Yeah, there's a reason we set up that back channel, because sometimes you want the student support. And sometimes you want to, send it direct to us and have everyone see the answer. And sometimes you just want a direct message. And all of that is fine. And Ariel threw in the chat that there are there are transcripts available for every class. So if you are someone who learns that way, that's also totally fine.
Well,
Okay.
It works really well for the timestamp. That was why I threw it in there.
Oh yes, it works for the timestamp as well. Okay, final two notes. If you struggled with the homework assignment and you got a 1.5, you don't feel obligated to redo it, but we will have an additional resource of kind of what the final product was supposed to look like. If you do want to practice on your wireframing, we'll have that over to you guys in the next couple days. And then you're welcome to resubmit the assignment if you want. If you don't, that's totally fine as well. And then finally, I invest a ton of time into these outlines. Not only do we have all 94 of them minus a couple days off from the last cohort, which is the first time we did these outlines, but I go through every single outline and manually move things over from the last cohort and shuffle things around. So it takes me about an hour to put these outlines together, because this is where I do all of my pre-planning work to make sure I know what I'm teaching you guys. With that said, if you would like to take your own notes on this or use this as a starting outline, you are able to pop open this document, go to File up at the top and down to Make a Copy. And if you want to make a copy, you can save that into your own Google Drive and start putting all of your notes directly in here. And if you are feeling generous, you are also welcome to share those notes with the rest of the class. Whether it's in the back channel, whether it's in the regular students group, whatever it is, right? So I don't want you to think that this outline is in place of your notes, but this outline may be a good place for starting your notes. And if you would like to use it, you are welcome to make your own copy of all of that. Okay. With all of that said, any questions on any of those reminders? I know I talk fast. I know if I don't ask if there are questions, some people feel like they can't ask questions. Like Ariel rudely said, you can interrupt me at any point.
I'm doing it right now. Sometimes you do need to tell them to scale it back, or if you don't understand something, you have to say something.
I'm
I don't know how
totally
many
joking.
times I wasn't.
Oh no, I know. You can interrupt me at any point. You can raise your hand. I know virtual can be hard, and I know that when you get lost, you are worried about you're so lost that you can't get back on track. That's why we have the TA. They can go into a breakout room, help you catch up. But it's as soon as you recognize that you're feeling that lost feeling, and I know it's hard because you probably haven't felt it yet. But when you do, as soon as you feel it, raise your hand, send a message in Slack, send a message to the TA in Zoom, shoot a message to me, just come off mute and start crying. Whatever it is, we will help you get back on track. Okay.
I only did that one time, just so we're clear.
All right. We are going to get our coding folder set up, and we are going to get into VS Code. Quick reaction of thumbs up or thumbs down. Who has already installed VS Code? Okay. Does anyone not have it installed and needs help installing it? Oh, yay. I like a prepared class. Okay. So what we are going to do is we are going to head to our desktop, and we're going to create our first folder that's going to contain all of our code. I'll just give you guys a preview of this. By the end of the cohort, you will have a folder for almost every week. Inside those weeks, there is a breakdown of the day. And as you pop open those days, you can see the files as we start working on them. We will be building this out over time, and you will hate how organized you are at the end of this. And if you are not that organized, you will hate yourself for not being that organized. Organization is super, super important, and you guys will get in the flow of copying the code of where you were at yesterday, making a new folder of it, and working your way through it. Later in the cohort in DevOps, which is week 5 or 6, I think week 6, you'll work with Nathan and learning how to use Git, which is a way that we can back up and save our code. Until then, we'll just be working with regular folders. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on the desktop, and we're going to go down to new folder, and we're going to call this C4-mycode. No spaces. You will learn that spaces are problematic for developers. So we're going to do C4-mycode. And I did that by right clicking. Again, if you're on your trackpad, 2 fingers tap will open up that right click menu. You can go down to new folder, and you're going to name that C4-mycode. From here, we're going to open up VS Code. And this is, by the way, something that everyone should be following along with. We will definitely take a break and make sure everyone is catching up. So I opened up VS Code because I have it in my doc. If you do not have it in your doc, you can go to Finder and into the Applications folder and scroll down to VS Code down here. And if you want it in your doc and it's not already in your doc, you can actually grab this icon here and drag it down to the bottom, and that will put that icon in your doc for you so that it will stay there. It has to be on the left third of the doc, but we will be using VS Code, I'm pretty sure, every day of the cohort between now and the next 5 months and 3 weeks. So probably a good idea to put VS Code in your doc. Last step we're going to do is we are going to open in our VS Code. I'm sorry, 2 more steps. We're going to go to File, Open Folder, and we're going to navigate to wherever this C4-mycode is. So mine's on my desktop. Hopefully all of yours are on your desktop as well. So we're going to click on desktop over on the left. I'm going to click on C4 My Code, and I'm going to hit open. And that's going to put us into this interface. Any questions? Hopefully you're getting the practice of, I see a lot of head turning and going to the other monitor. Love seeing that.
I'm sorry, what were we supposed to do for that part?
File, open folder in VS Code. Get to your C4 My Code folder and hit open.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
Mine says, do you trust the authors of the files in the folder? So do
Go
I just
ahead and hit yes. Yeah.
Okay, just to make sure.
Always better to ask the question and play it safe.
Yeah, I don't want to ruin this. I don't want anything to happen to the computer, so.
Okay.
Max, the
Everyone,
only-
yes.
I'm sorry, the only thing I can find or see, where am I supposed to find the open folder?
So do you have VS Code open?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all the way at the very top of the screen, it should say Apple Code File.
Apple Code File? Oh, we're not in VS Code.
So the Mac is a little different. The toolbar at the top of the screen is always contextual to whatever application that you have open. So on Windows, the file edit will always be like within the window. On Mac, you'll never find file edit because it will always be at that very top menu bar. And those menu bars will change based off of what application you're in.
Okay, so if I'm opening, I have to open the desktop folder.
If you're in VS Code, you should be able to go to File, Open Folder.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can go to desktop and open up your C4 My Code, click on that, and then hit open.
Yep, okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we are going to solve a problem that caused one student to lose almost all of their files in cohort 3. Code does not like to sync to the cloud, which is very ironic because code runs the cloud. But while we are developing on applications, it's not as bad earlier on because we're working on these little files and just starting to write our code. But as we progress, we will have more and more files, packages, frameworks, all kinds of stuff that are involved in our projects. The cloud does not do a good job of syncing that up to save all of those files. So do not put your My Code folder in Dropbox. Do not put it in OneDrive. Do not put it in Google Drive. And here's the real kicker. It should not sync with iCloud Drive either. If you are signed in and have iCloud Drive turned on, it's a massive pain to turn that off just for this My Code folder in system preferences. So we solve for that on day 1 and say, hey, your code's not going to sync. And when we get to week 6, we're going to go over Git and talk about backing up your code and all of that good stuff. But to prevent this My Code folder from syncing up to iCloud, we're going to hit this little plus icon on new file, not new folder, just on new file. And that's going to pop up this little text box. This is what it wants to know. What do we want to call the file? We're going to put a period at the beginning of it. And then we're going to type in no sync, NOSYNC, and hit enter on that. And that's it. We just saved hours and hours of headache because we told iCloud, no touchy. You don't want to sync this. Just don't do it. This popped open a new file. You can go ahead and close that. We don't need it. We just want to get our no sync set up.
Max, you got a couple lost.
Okay, talk to me.
A quick question. So when I was starting that, I got a message that was like files starting with the period or reserve for. Okay, so that was okay.
That's normal. If you keep typing, that error message will go away.
Okay, awesome. All right, got it.
So let me go through these steps again. If you've got your My Code folder open, if you don't, raise your hand. I'll go over those steps again. If you see the C4 My Code up at the top of the screen, you put your mouse over in this left sidebar. That's going to give you these icons up at the top. If you click on the new file icon, the one all the way over on the left, that's going to give you this new text box area. And you're going to type in a period and then type in NOSYNC and hit enter. Let's just do a quick poll and see where you guys are at. So you'll see we reuse this poll all the time. This gives me a good gauge of who still needs help, who's still trying to work on it, who was able to get that no-sync file created.
I have a quick question, Max.
Yes.
I'm signed in under my GitHub account for VS Code. Would that no sync have an impact on that?
No, it will only impact iCloud Drive and the backups for iCloud. It will not impact anything else.
Okay.
Okay, it's the end of the evening. I do have one more thing that we need to get set up, which is live share. But starting 2 minutes at the end of the class is always a bad idea. And I'm realizing that I'm breaking my own rules. So in the last minute, we won't do the actual definitions. But in the, let's try and capture this as quickly as we can. Were there any terms mentioned tonight that we can just get out there on the list, and then we can go ahead and define them later? Any terms covered tonight that you learned that we want to define?
Ethical hacking.
Ethical hacking. Any other terms? Someone say something? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sorry, what's EV?
EV is electric vehicle.
Oh, okay, never mind. I know what that is. I just didn't know what the abbreviation was for.
Do you know what the opposite of an EV is?
No, standard.
ICE. Does anyone know what ICE stands for?
All I know is that it's a platform. I just don't know what it stands for though.
Internal combustion engine.
You might as well add PHEV on there too.
And if you ICE someone, it means that you've parked an internal combustion engine in an electric vehicle charging station. So you say you've been iced because a gas car is blocking your charging spot.
So do you say you've been EV because an EV car is blocking your gas spot?
I've never heard it, but theoretically it's possible.
Max, I have an off the topic question.
Sure, go ahead.
Since day one, I want to know what the little elephant icon means on the top.
This is for Postgres, which is the database that we'll be using. We will be installing that in week 18, maybe. But yes, the elephant is the symbol of Postgres. And I feel like all of the databases have
Yeah, I was gonna say, doesn't like one of the like Apache like servers, like MAMP or one of those kind of thing have an elephant? Because that's the only place I had ever seen it before Christina mentioned it. I didn't see it.
so MySQL is a dolphin, Postgres is an elephant, MariaDB is a seal. Programmers get on this theming thread and then they go nuts with it. We use a framework called Meteor. The package manager is called Astronomy. There's like all kinds of different. There's a package called Atmosphere that we use. So like people hook onto this one theme and then go nuts with it in programming. Never let programmers name anything. Hire a marketing team, let them make the decisions.
Now, oh, I see all the little things up there. Shoot. I lost
So
it.
I will say it's past time. If you've got your no-sync file working, you're welcome to head out. I will stick around in case there are any questions. I don't mean to cut you off. I will definitely answer anything that pops into your head, Christina.
Oh yeah, I remember when you're done.
But you guys are welcome to head out. Tomorrow we will start with getting our live share set up and making sure that you guys can see my code. And then we will dive right into the HTML side of everything. If you have any feedback on tonight's class, Ariel's going to post the link. It's the same link for all the classes. You can also get to it through Canvas. We appreciate any feedback more for your own sake than for our sake, because we want to make sure that you're learning and feeling productive. I'll have this outline updated to remove all of this HTML stuff, move that to the day 2 outline. So all of that stays up to date. And if you are bored, you are welcome to check out that pre-reading assignment. That's got everything in it. Again, pre-reading is optional. You don't need to turn anything in, but that can be a great place to jot down your notes. And so when you come in for the next day or the next week, you've already got a jump start on everything that we're learning. But I'll have these outlines updated before tomorrow's class, and we will dive in from there. Other than that, have an awesome evening, and I will stick around for a couple minutes in case any questions do pop up.
I do have a question. Okay, so on Apple, in like the App Store, it says there's like developer. So when you become a developer, like will you be able to tap into all that? Like when there's a new software that comes out, it'll ask if you want the developer package or something like that. I remember seeing it and I'm like, oh wow, is this what we're gonna be able to also tap into?
So Apple has their own developer program. I think they finally made it free, but then there's still like a paid tier, which is like $100 a year or something like that. Those Apple developer tools are specifically meant for building on Mac OS, iOS, or iPad OS or Watch OS, right? So it's meant for building apps on Apple products. Because our curriculum is focused on web development, and things that can literally run on anyone's computer, we don't dive into those developer tools too deep. We will inadvertently use them when we're using the terminal, because a lot of the terminal commands we run require those developer tools. But we won't be doing a deep dive on Xcode. We'll be using VS Code instead. But Xcode is kind of the Apple, it's called an IDE or integrated development environment that's used to build Mac apps and iOS apps.
Okay, now what would you say is the difference between coding on a Mac versus another computer?
The Mac is the preferred coding platform for most developers because it is based on Linux. So Linux has a lot of command line tools built into it that are easier for developers to use than Windows computers. So unless you are coding in the .NET framework, which often uses C#, most developers prefer to code on Mac only because it's easier to manage the dependencies of their code.
Okay, all right, because now if you try to code from one to the other, will you be completely lost?
Not completely lost. VS Code is actually a Microsoft product. The VS Code works fine on both of them. If you're doing just front-end web development, most of the tools that you're using will work across OS without any problem, right? HTML is HTML. That will run in Chrome, whether Chrome is on Windows or Chrome is on Mac, right? Or any other browser for that matter. With that said, when you start working with backend, with databases, with Node.js, with APIs, with all of that kind of stuff, all of those tools are built in the Linux platform. So because Mac OS, the operating system built into the Mac, is based off of Linux, all of those servers become much easier to set up, install, manage, write code for, all of that stuff. On Windows, we actually had a student who I think had a water issue with their laptop. And right when we were getting started in Node and the server, they had to get their laptop repaired and only had a Windows computer that they were able to work on. And they spent about 10 hours getting the server set up, which we got set up in about 10 minutes. It is possible to do on Windows. They did finally push through and get it all working. But it is much harder. It is much harder to develop on Windows than it is on Mac. Of course, there will always be diehard Windows fans who say,
I know, because my uncle's a program manager in Charlotte, and he's like, "Oh, I don't see why you would have to learn on a Mac. That doesn't seem logical to me." Like, he's such a hater. And then my brother is like, you know, he's sending me all these articles of why Mac is not the greatest. And so I don't have any response to tell them, because I'm like, oh, I don't know. He said it so fast on day one when at the kickoff. I'm like, I don't know.
so you'll find programmers are quite opinionated.
Okay.
And that is something that spans literally down to whether you use the spaces key or the tabs key when you're coding.
Okay.
And like, I'm not even kidding, like Silicon Valley, the HBO show literally did like an entire scene over whether people hit the space bar 4 times or hit the tab button when they're coding. Like, as silly as that sounds, people will like get into screaming matches over which one is better. Or it really depends on someone. There are web developers, especially people who use that .NET framework, who are like, oh, Windows is the only thing I would use because that's what all the tools are built for. Microsoft made this web framework. They made the tools to work in the web framework, and they make the server to run the web framework. So if you're working at an employer who's using .NET, Raymore and Flanagan is a big local employer. They use all of .NET. Yeah, you're going to use Windows if you work there. That's the fact of the matter. But most web developers, because the vast majority of web servers are running Linux, anything that runs WordPress is all Linux based. Anything that runs Postgres or MySQL usually is Linux based. It's something like 70%, I think, of the world's web servers are built using a Linux operating system. And because the Mac is Linux based, that's why we use that. And so if there's only one argument to take back to them, it would be the vast majority of web servers are Linux based, and that's why we use a Mac, because that is also Linux based.
Now, would you recommend a VPN?
No. If you're working out of coffee shops a lot, if you're working somewhere other than your home, a VPN is a good idea. Basically, whenever you're on a public internet connection, it adds another layer of encryption. With that said, the vast majority of the internet is already encrypted via HTTPS. Okay. It's probably a little overkill. VPNs got to get a little tricky on, sometimes they block access to your internet, or they're a pain to turn on, or if you're doing secure work, I mean, I have a VPN. Whenever I'm traveling, I turn on a VPN before I connect to anything. But it's at this point, probably not something that you need to really worry about.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Hi.
okay.
I had a question.
96.3% of all web servers on the internet run Linux. So
Okay.
there's your stat to take back. That's not to say that there are not uses for Windows and development, but I am a little bit of an Apple fanboy. If you want to get into an argument on this, I'm willing to get into, not with you in particular, but it's a battle that I've had, and it's a battle that will be raging on until the end of time. Sorry, Gonza, go ahead.
No, it's okay. So I just had a question about the optional homework. Is it, I know that it looks like a grading rubric on it. Is it just 0, 0, or is it extra credit, or is it just literally optional?
It is optional. I will say that, like, if you get to like an academic warning, which is like when you start falling behind, doing the optional homeworks would be, you could get extra credit from that. Like we try and look at the person holistically. So we're not just like, it's not like, oh, you hit this score, you're kicked out of the program, right? Like we work with you on all of that stuff. So if you had optional homeworks done, we would definitely factor that in. But a lot of these optional homeworks I brought over from cohort 3.
Okay.
And I forgot to remove the rubric on all of them. And some of them may have a submission on them that should not be there. So you can just ignore rubrics or points or submissions on those. I
Okay.
can't even find where to take the freaking rubric off of it.
Max, I saw it earlier. I might be able to remove them for the OAs if you want. I can take a look again.
If you could, that would be great.
Yeah.
Oh, I found it. It's just a little delete icon. But yeah, if you want to do a pass on them, they should say 0 points, no submission, and delete the rubric. And
Okay.
then deleting the rubric, you don't do in the edit screen. You just do it on like the assignment page. And I may try and work ahead on that over the weekend. But yeah, do you have another question?
Oh, no, I mean,
Oh, okay.
put my hand up. All right, thank you so much.
No problem. And you guys don't need, I will stick around for any questions, but don't feel obligated to be here. 8:30, you can be like, peace out. I'm done with his rambling.
I'm trying to figure out where my end where the end button.
oh,
All I
if you-
see is a bunch of tiles of pictures.
Do you have it in the bottom right? If
Uh,
not, you may need to take the window and kind of scoot it up a little bit more on your monitor so you can get to it. You can
It'll
also-
say leave on it.
Yeah,
or end.
I only see everybody talking. I don't see anything else.
Do you see this screen share button that you saw last time?
Nope. I only see well, I only see people talking. That's it.
So if you
And then wait, I see join meeting, share screen, new meeting. Oh, I have no idea what happened.
okay, so if you get back to our window and just click in it to focus it, up in the top left, you should have your red X button and your minus and your all of those. You can just hit that red X button and that will also close the meeting.
Max, is she in full screen so she needs to go to view?
Oh, maybe try hitting the escape button on your keyboard to get out of full screen mode.
Or in the
Escape-
top right-hand side of all the people talking, it'll say view, and you can hit exit full screen on it. And then the leave button will be directly under it to the bottom in red.
No, like literally, I only see four video pictures on the
Oh,
top.
she's in a different view, that's why. The X doesn't work for me, but if it does for you guys, let me know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Okay, so do you see where it says Zoom meeting at the top of the window?
No, it's just only pictures and little icons like this. I can say it says show grid video, thumbnail video, speaker video, and hide thumbnail video.
Can you hit Command Q on your keyboard?
Okay. Oh, thank you.
There you go. Have a good night, guys. I'll see you later.